Hi, Eleanor. We're getting close to Christmas. I hope you're having a good Advent season where you are. And we're excited to read you a story today. And this one is called The Polar Express. It's a story about Santa Claus. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear, the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. And here he is looking out the window, seeing this train in front of his house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. The conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest. Then he looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and rode. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course." This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. And here's the train that's going to go to the North Pole. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and our I'm having trouble with my glasses. I got new eyes, you see. And ate candies and nougat centers white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Ooh, yum. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced forward. And here's all the kids on the train getting their hot chocolate that's rich as melted chocolate. Ooh, wow, that sounds good. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. I think the white rabbits were hiding from the lean, hungry wolves. But that's just me. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks, through valleys, like a car on a roller coaster. There's those peaks that it was climbing and going around. The mountains turned into hills, the hills into snow-covered plains. We crossed the barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." And see, they're going over this bridge, and there in the distance are the lights of the North Pole. The North Pole, it was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift of Christmas? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. And here's the train going into the heart of the North Pole city. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets of Santa's helpers, with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor let us outside. So here's the streets. See all of those elves just crowding. So the train had to stop. You see it right there in the middle. Stopped by all the elves out in the street. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and pranced, ringing their silver sleigh bells that hung from their harness. It was a magical sound, like nothing I'd never, ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us, and pointing at me, he said, let's have this fellow here. He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, now, what would you like for Christmas? So here's a picture of Santa greeting his elves. And there's his sleigh being pulled into position behind him. I knew I could have any gift I could imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one of the silver bells from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, the first gift of Christmas. There's a bell. And I don't know, did I show you the picture? Yeah. There's the boy standing right near Santa, and there's his reindeer, and he's holding a bell up in his hand. The first gift of Christmas. The clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh, and Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. And here you see Santa's sleigh climbing up into the cold, dark Arctic sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. Let's hurry outside and look for it, one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. So here they are inside of the train, and there's our hero. He's sitting there looking very sad because he lost the bell that Santa gave him, the first gift of Christmas. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands to his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. And so here's our boy coming home, and the Polar Express is leaving from in front of his house. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." Oh, it's Santa Claus. I shook the bell, and it made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," my father says, "it is broken." And when I'd shake the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as the years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. And that is the book, The Polar Express. And it is written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg. And I hope you've enjoyed it, Eleanor, and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. And I hope to read you one more story before Christmas comes. Have a great day. Bye.